Thank you for coming. We're super excited to have you here. For us, March is our new theme, Facing Reality.
Okay.
For you, we're excited to have you here on our show, Jason. For Ep.6, we want to talk to you about starting over. From what we know and where we've talked about throughout your story, you had to do that and reinvent. But for those of us who don't know you, who is Jason Turner?
Jason Turner. So I work at St. Mary's University, wear a lot of different hats. A lot of it's around entrepreneurship, a lot of it's around youth development, leadership, and things like that. At the core, I'm a human services guy, right? I'm a guy that likes the underdog.
I'm with you.
This theme is interesting for me because, you guys know me a little bit. I've had to do some starting over and, back in the day a little bit. And, to be honest though, I think I'm in an ecosystem right now in a spot at work where I get to start over every day. Like every day we get to try something new, we get to work with new people, new populations. And so now I guess it's a good place for me because I get to help other people start over.
All right, so let's rewind a little bit, take it back, kind of dive into maybe where that passion for helping people came from. So what was the environment like growing up?
So, yeah, I grew up in a house with a lot of love. I had a lot of good reasons to do well, and I had the support and all that kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, it's that wasn't enough to get me through when things started to kind of, I wouldn't say totally fall apart, but I was your classic kid that faced some challenges, and now that I got a bit of hindsight, I think I was that guy that wasn't challenged very much in school. I don't think there was anything at school that really grabbed me. Math was challenging, but it wasn't interesting, right? I didn't have anything to challenge me from holy smokes, I want to do this, I want to do that, and so I didn't learn to work for stuff that I really, really was passionate about. And so as a result, you talk about just disengaged, right, and aimless and things, and so the wheels just kind of started falling off. That's the kind of stuff you can mask when you're young, when you're like quite young, but it's, you get 15, 16, and you start getting into other stuff as well.
Okay.
And you add all that up, and it becomes more and more challenging to skip through school and make it work.
So you definitely had to get through a couple, pitfalls and setbacks and things like that. So in dealing with some of those setbacks, what would you say has been your biggest one, and how did you pull yourself out of it?
From a bird's eye view, I would say, the biggest one, if I had to pick something very specific, I would say I didn't finish high school. So, that's a big deal, right? That comes with a lot of baggage, that comes with a lot of stuff that you have to deal with on the way to failing through high school. I mean, that just doesn't happen. That was a 3-year process. I had to work at flunking out of high school for 3 years before it actually happened. So that comes with a lot of stuff, right? It comes with a lot of guilt and fear, and for a kid like me, I was that kid with a bit of a little man, the small man complex and stuff like that. I was always the little guy, right? I remember, I'm still a small guy, but I'm grade 11 and I'm 90 pounds and like 5 foot or something. Right, and my friends are 6 foot and 5'11" and 190, 200 pounds. So that you add that, and then not having success in school, and always having that personality that would say yes to anything without really any hesitation whatsoever. You add all that kind of stuff up, and it just takes its toll after a while.
And feeling like that. What kind of feelings did you have? How did you cope?
How did I cope? I didn't cope with that. Like always put your head in the sand, pretend that everything's cool. When a friend or somebody shows some concern, you either lie outright or just pretend that everything's great, or you talk about how great the party on the weekend is going to be, or you switch it around. You become, a lot of people are having challenges around that. You become very good at putting it on the other person, right? How are you doing? Right? Like, don't worry about me. It's all good. It's all good, man.
I'm always good.
How's it going with you? Right? And I also had that side where I genuinely cared about what happened with other people. I always had that side. I didn't touch on that as far as, growing up and things, that was stuff that was instilled in me from a very early age. No matter what was going on with me, I was always interested in what happened with others.
And you having that natural component of empathy and obviously being around, in that environment, and there's also the distinction for you, right? You're essentially you were keeping your personal inside, and you were able to deflect other people off.
Sure.
And I think that's true with everyone. Everyone has a face or a hat they put on that's their social hat, and then everyone has that personal, that internal hat that this is where I draw the line. And so there are struggles and there are challenges, but I think an issue, whether it's dealing with youth or personally or at the university level, one of the hardest things is trying to help people lay down some of those walls so that you can help them with those personal battles. And so for this theme, and with you in mind, how would you go through that? Because I know obviously you had to deal with lowering some of your walls as well. So what were some of the things that you used to proactively do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm a lot better helping others than I was helping myself. I'd love to tell you that I had this structured path. I'm not like you guys. I wasn't like you guys, where you're very serious, committed young men that have plans and you have goals and you have a pretty clear outline. I'm sure there's some stuff that you're not sure about, like any young person or any person, but you're very different. You have that mentality, right? And I didn't have that. I think that's where people fall apart, right? If you don't have something that you're shooting for, like I wasn't a sad kid. I wasn't a miserable kid that just life sucks. I wasn't like that. I just didn't, I didn't have that thing that would be able to pull me out. And I think for a lot of people, that's what you need. You talk about what you have to do to move on and start over. I think if you don't have that, something that just grabs you, then it's very difficult, because what's the point, right? Like, when I get out of bed now, every morning, I think, not it's conscious every day, but, I get up in the morning and, I wake up beside the love of my life every day, and that's amazing for me, right? And I go downstairs and I have the other two loves of my life. I have these amazing kids that I get to spend my time with in the morning before I send them off to school. But then I get to come in and I have this whole other world of other lives that touch me and are incredible and special to be around and stuff. So I get to help others start over a lot. For me, honestly though, it's to kind of bring it back around. I got lucky. Like I fell into some stuff that I was ready for it, but it wasn't that I was actively trying to make things happen for myself. I was, so after high school, I just kind of spun around the city, or spun around Canada, all over the place. I lived in all sorts of different places, cities and small towns, and doing predominantly work in restaurants and the kitchens and that kind of stuff. But just aimless and drifting. So, I get to look back on that now with a bit of hindsight, and I can find the good stuff from each of those spots, right? I can find something that I was able to incorporate into my growth, development, whatever. But it certainly wasn't purposeful. I never had a plan, or I just didn't. It wasn't something. I had a couple of lightning strikes moments in my life that provided me with opportunities to jump in and try stuff. And thankfully I had enough courage within, but I also had people pushing me from the outside. I had my family, I had some friends, and then later years I had my wife that would push me to kind of get past some of this stuff and try things. And you guys know one of the pivotal things for me was, I would have been 28 years old, and things were still not good. I was still up and down. What was important to me was still things like staying out all night and living that kid lifestyle, that early 20s fun vibe and lifestyle kind of thing. And that was definitely, again, in hindsight, it was clearly something that allowed me just to live this life and without really thinking about what I was doing. If I just stay out and just stay going, always be in motion, never sit back and reflect, just say yes to everything, just keep going all the time. It allowed me to kind of put that other stuff aside. And then I got an opportunity in an isolated community in the middle of nowhere, to become a high school teacher as a high school dropout. And so again, not a planned thing, and certainly not a realistic thing. Not something that, is something that I'm very proud of, that I was able to do that. And it was the beginning of a real upward trajectory for me when I started to get my legs and started to figure out, this is something that I like, and immediately being gratified, like, for those that haven't, I had by this point, 12, 13 years of really bad school lives, right? Like I said, it took me 3-4 years to kind of put it all together and actually flunk out of high school. So that's a lot leading up to it, and then there's a lot of residual stuff afterwards. 10 years of guilt, 10 years of fear, 10 years of, feeling like you're not very bright, or what's wrong with me. I wish I knew what I wanted to do when you're senior. Especially, you get to 22, 23, and the kids that left you behind have now truly left you behind, because now they're finishing university, and you still haven't gone back to get a GED or anything. So yeah, it's I don't know. I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to help other people start over. There's anyone can go online and find some cool tips on what a young person should do when they're falling apart. And I think I'm pretty good at what I do. I think my own background it starts off, it gives me a bit of credibility, right? Because people understand, because I share immediately where I'm coming from. I think people understand that, I didn't have the hardest story or the worst story or anything like that, but there's elements in my background that kind of gel with elements from anybody that's having problems. There's some parallels there. And that gives me some street cred with them immediately, and it allows me to start building that trust and things like that. And now, in hindsight, and after the work that I do and the people that I'm surrounded with at work, and the people like you guys, the students that I get to spend my time with, I think I have figured a few things out, and I think I have figured out how to help others. There's still a ways to go, and there's always new ways to do it, but at our office, we push the envelope, we do new things, we try stuff, but at the core of it, it starts with a belief in the people that we work with, that you just gotta give this kid the tools, or show them some love, give them a hug after they've done something terrible. Just hug them and remind them that it's okay, and that the program goes on, and don't worry about it. Every day you start over, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things, I can't take this quote for myself, my best friend and manager, Michael, you guys know Michael Sanderson. So one of the things that he always talks about, that I've always carried with me, is the idea that every day you wake up and you can redefine yourself. You get to start over, right? Like, you have a decision to make. So if you're in the middle of some bullshit, in the morning you decide, am I going to continue on this path, or am I going to try to make a switch? And we're lucky now, we are in a position at the office and through the programs that we run, where we're able to offer the tools and the open doors for people that are necessary for them. If they want to walk through it, then the world is there. It's like, we see it all the time. We see incredible growth and development in a very short time. We're truly blessed that we're able to provide these kind of supports.
Being able to go, looking at that, I think there's a lot. I know there's a lot in what you just said, because being able to revisit anew every day, or look at somebody new every day with a different perspective, is hard. But I think it's important, because what you're saying, you're never as high. You're never as high as you feel, and you're never as low as you feel. And through your story and what we've talked about, starting fresh, it's super important to be able to revisit with a fresh look, but you have to celebrate the mini successes, the day-to-day successes, because every day you're going to come up with something inevitably. There's going to be a challenge, and you have to look at it with a fresh picture, because just because you won yesterday, like you said, doesn't mean you're going to win today, and doesn't mean you're going to win tomorrow. So you have to be able to kind of celebrate the day-to-day successes to build that momentum.
Absolutely.
So as a recommendation for others, or even for your past self, what would you say?
My message is always based in hope, I guess, like hope that there's going to be something better. If I put in some effort, that something's coming out of it, right? My message is usually, something around transcending what others think of you, right? Like trying to get people to understand that you're not that picture that other people see, depending on whatever your story is. You're not necessarily, because you have to remember, like when you have things like mental health issues and things like that get into it, of course, too, like, it's very easy to see the star students and stuff that are doing all the work and the volunteering and they're getting job offers and they get scholarships and they're captain of their teams and this. Like, it's very easy to make the mistake of thinking that person's got their shit locked down, everything is great. Well, I'm in a position, I get to be with those students all the time, and I get to see the cracks in the foundation, right? So I think that's a lucky spot to be in, because I think it allows me to realize that no matter who you are, you still have stuff to deal with, right? And that you still have to, again, start over and reinvent yourself. Because it doesn't mean they're all these things, but it doesn't mean they feel like all those things, right? Just like the messed up kid that is not going through the traditional path, they're not all those things either. They still have greatness within, like they still have something that they have to offer other people. Maybe it's hidden really deep, or maybe it's they have one positive relationship in their life or something that you can draw from, that you can say, listen, I know how much you care about those nieces or those nephews or whatever it is. So, you got to do this stuff for yourself, but what about them? Like, what about using them as a motivation to be a better guy, to make better choices, to take better care of yourself and things? If I had a clear message to give, 20-year-old Jason, 17-year-old Jason, 25-year-old Jason, it would be, you're not such a bad guy. You have to be willing, I think, I tell myself that you'd have to be willing to see yourself the way others see you. And I think that's an important exercise. It's something that we do with our groups, for instance. The reality is, no matter what path you've chosen, there's a lot of people that don't feel good, right? They can put that mask on and they're great at school, they're great at work, all these things, but then they go home and they're not, right? And they don't feel like that at all. So, and then you've got the flip side, the folks that shouldn't be feeling good based on what we know about them, right? But what they have in common is that they need that affirmation. They need others. They need to see what others see sometimes, because that idea that you can't see the forest for the trees, or you got to take a step back and it's hard to look within, right? Sometimes you're too close to the problem or something. But I think it accomplishes two things when you bring people together and you get them to get a perspective from somebody else. You get to hear what that person says, so you get to realize, geez, well, I respect Kanaar, and if he thinks these things are interesting or cool or smart or unique or whatever about me, then that's great. I can appreciate that, and that makes me feel good. But I think, at the same time, I think that the Kanaars don't take the opportunities enough to tell people these things in general, right? And I think that does a lot. If you're a person that can share with others your true feelings about who they are, I think that helps you grow and develop. And I know it makes me a better person, makes me feel good that I'm able to pull somebody aside and share with them, because I know what it means. I know what it means to one of our youth. Again, whether it's an at-risk youth or a student or whoever, I know what it means to somebody to be pulled aside when they didn't have to be pulled aside, and to be told something that somebody thinks is special about them. So that would be my message. I think it would be, maybe start working a little bit harder at some of this stuff. Maybe start looking for some of these ideas, but they will come. It took me a few years longer than a lot of people. Some people, it's a few months. They don't sort out what they want to do, or maybe you take some school class, like an undergrad class or something, and maybe you realize you got to go back to the drawing board and take another program or something. Great. For me, it took 10 years of just floundering and not having any clue. I'm Jason Turner, and this is my voice.